Hey friends, so we are back. It has been a crazy couple of months to start 2020. Unless you've been living under a rock, you have heard of the Rona, the coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever you want to call it, but it is wreaking havoc across the globe. Large events and mass gatherings are being canceled all over the place. Festivals canceled. Schools are closing across the country until mid-April. And you know what else? No more sports. That's right, people. No more sports. It's been a struggle. The NBA suspended their season indefinitely. We have no idea when it's coming back. The CDC just came up with a new recommendation this past week. 8 weeks, complete stoppage, no mass gatherings, no nothing. Mass gatherings is more than 50 people. Obviously, sporting events are tens of thousands of people. NCAA tournament canceled. The NHL, they've suspended their season. Major League Baseball has canceled all of the rest of spring training. Whatever was on the schedule, canceled. And they've delayed opening day, which was supposed to be March 26th, for at least 2 weeks. But with this new CDC 8-week recommendation, who knows when things will start now. But let's get back to the NBA real quick. The NBA suspended the season after finding out that Rudy Gobert, the Utah Jazz center, tested positive for coronavirus. And there was a big uproar about him testing positive because he was seen 2 days before touching all the microphones as he was doing a post-game press conference, right? And so everybody's upset and in an uproar about, well, how could he do this and how could he be like, let's pump our brakes for 2 seconds, because until last week, the level of concern for the coronavirus was like, it's just like the flu, it'll be fine, this will pass. So Rudy Gobert is not the only person who wasn't taking this seriously up until a week ago, up until he got it. And is it dumb and stupid and immature? Yeah, absolutely. Especially when we've heard from health professionals from the time we've heard about this virus that it's dangerous and it's, you can contract it very easily. And they say that young people may not show signs of having the coronavirus and older people are more susceptible and all this other stuff. Like there's so many things that go into it. A lot of people weren't taking it serious. But in the last week and a half, I've seen grocery stores that don't have any toilet paper or paper towels or water. People getting stabbed for water in some states. Like it's just insane. There's an elevated level of concern. Now, it's not because the administration took it seriously. The administration has been of no help until they announced that it was a national emergency. And after the NBA season was suspended, that was on Wednesday, we find out that a teammate of Rudy Gobert's, Donovan Mitchell, also tested positive for coronavirus. And recently, in the past couple of days, we found out that a Pistons player, Christian Wood, he also tested positive for the coronavirus. Now, the Utah Jazz played the Pistons like a week and a half ago or something like that. But you have to think, like, this virus is one of those things where you may not show symptoms for 4 to 5 or 4 to 6 days after you've gotten the virus. And then it still stays in your system for like 14 days. And I still haven't heard whether you can get it twice or whatever the case may be. Like there's so much we don't know about this virus that it's hard to like point fingers and point blame. It's like, we just have to start doing a better job as a society to keep each other safe. This whole social distancing thing, I'm not really with it. I don't really like people, but I'm not with the social distancing thing because then it's not my choice to be distant from people. It's being forced upon me, so I have to stay in my house. I don't get to go out to my bars and watch games because there's no games on. When you're forced to do something, you're less inclined to want to do it. But it is imperative right now that we try and keep each other safe. Like we try and help protect each other. And even if I can't get the virus, or if I got it, it would be similar to me having the flu and I'd be out for 2 to 3 days and I'd have a fever and I'd cough a little bit, but I would get over it. Like I could infect somebody who doesn't have the greatest immune system and they don't have the ability to bounce back like that. At this point in the US, there's like 2,800 cases or something like that. And like worldwide, it's like in the hundreds of thousands. And while only like 50,000 people have recovered from it or something like that, like people do recover from the coronavirus. But at the end of the day, would you rather recover from something or just not get it at all? Like keep yourself safe, keep the people around you safe. I don't know how many people are taught when they're children to cough into their elbow, but like I feel like that was always instilled in me. And I always see people like coughing out loud or coughing into their hand and it's like, no, no, no. But seriously, just be cognizant. The only way that this coronavirus dies is if we help each other. Until the coronavirus is nothing that we have to worry about. Yes, in 6 months we'll look back and we'll be like, remember that coronavirus? The same way we do H1N1 and Ebola and, anthrax and all of that other stuff. Like the same way that stuff is now distant memory, coronavirus will be. We have to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves and we are taking care of the people around us so that coronavirus can be gone and we can have sports back. Please. Another thing I want to mention in regards to the NBA season being canceled, we have to talk about the arena workers. The game was on. The Mavericks were playing the Nuggets, I believe, and Mark Cuban is on the sideline obviously watching the team, and you can see him looking at his phone finding out that the NBA has suspended the season. And of course they go to interview Mark because he's there and he's readily available. This reporter asked him, like, you know, how are you feeling, what's going on? And Mark of course gave like the whole shock and all, like, I can't believe it type of thing, but he also mentioned something super important. There are arena workers who are hourly. And I don't think that's something that we all think of to begin with. It's like, oh, we're not gonna have sports, this is terrible. What are we gonna do with ourselves? What are we gonna do with our time? Oh, these basketball players, they don't get to play. But the arena workers, they make an hourly wage. So when he mentioned the arena workers and like that was a concern for him, and he said that he was going to figure out how they were going to be able to implement a program, and they were going to be able to pay these workers for the amount of time that they won't be actually working the games, is super important. And then all of these players, Kevin Love came out and said that he would donate $100,000 to the arena workers. Giannis Antetokounmpo said that he would pledge $100,000. Blake Griffin also said that he would donate $100,000. Zion Williamson said that he was going to pay those salaries for those arena workers for 30 days. And my thing is, these NBA owners, and Mark Cuban gets all the kudos. You know why? Because Mark Cuban was the first person to address it, and Kevin Love is the first player to come out and say that he's gonna help donate. But like, this is a time where people who have should help to give to people who don't have or won't have. And I think the example that Mark Cuban is setting, and that Kevin and Zion and Blake and Giannis are setting, is an important one. I'm sure that other arenas and other owners and other players will come to the assistance of all of these people. I hope they do. It would be the right thing to do. But it just, we need to highlight those things, like the positive things that come out of a crisis like this. We have to highlight those. So in NFL news, now the NFL hasn't been hit as hard with this coronavirus pandemic as the NBA and the NHL and MLB, because the season doesn't start until later in the year. But free agency and the draft are gonna probably be handled a little bit differently, but those decisions will come as that date gets closer. The draft isn't until April, so we have a couple of weeks for that. And then of course free agency starts this week, but you can have conversations over the phone or FaceTime and all that other stuff. So like, those type of deals can get done without being face to face. But the big news out of the NFL is that the players voted on the new collective bargaining agreement, and there are strong feelings and opinions, especially from the players who did vote, because we'll get to that later. Just about the CBA and what they feel like they could have done and what they didn't do, what they did do, and like the positives, the negatives, all of that. So a lot of the big changes are going to be a 17-game season starting in 2021, which would mean 3 preseason games and an extra regular season game, obviously. Another thing is a decrease in benefits for former players who have now a disability. And I don't know exactly what the language of this disability really is in this agreement, but I'm gonna look into that, because it seems like a lot of players, from what I've read from their social media feeds and just like interviews that have been done, is that they're feeling a way about not having taken care of that. Another one that I think is interesting but is kind of vague, so we'll have to see how this really plays out, is that they will no longer be suspending players who test positive on marijuana drug tests. But I wanna drive home a serious point about the CBA. According to a bunch of reports, there's like 500 or so players who didn't vote at all in the CBA. When you have a grouping of that many people who have to vote on something, there are always going to be discrepancies. There's always going to be one side that feels like they got everything that they wanted, and one side that feels like we didn't get this one thing, so we're not happy with it. Here's the thing. You have to vote to have an opinion. You know who isn't allowed to have an opinion? Somebody who didn't even vote. Somebody who decided that they were going to forfeit their right to give their opinion, give their feeling, give their concern, give their anything. You decided that you weren't going to do it. So if you're too busy to vote, you don't get an opinion afterwards. So you have to live with whatever decision is made, but you're not allowed to be angry about it, because the only person who can fix that is you. And for 500 guys to decide that this huge agreement that affects not only these players that play in the league today, but future players and former players, it's irresponsible of you to not vote. And it's disrespectful to the game for you to not vote. You don't have to like what the outcome is, but when you are given a way to use your voice, you should do so. Even if it's not exactly what you want, how do you just not vote? It's just such a bad look, because players all the time want their voices to be heard for specific things. And it's like, this is one area where you will literally, they tell you to vote. You are squandering that because of what? All right, friends, that is it for this episode of Katherine's Quarters. Thank you so much for joining me. Please, please, please make sure that you are listening to your healthcare professionals and being diligent in washing your hands and be social distancing and all of that other good stuff that they're recommending that we do, because coronavirus is serious. And even if it's not, even if they tell you that it's not serious for 21 to 40-year-olds or whatever the range is, you could give that to somebody you care about. So just make sure that you are socially distancing yourselves from the people that you like to hang out with. And we'll be getting lots of news this week based off of the NFL free agency starting, but make sure you hit the subscribe button below, and definitely make sure you're following me on Twitter, because just because there are no games going on doesn't mean I am not tweeting about all of the latest sports news. Check you guys later.